So pay special attention to the differences in the teachings of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, or the Christ, that are contained even in his first translations that he posted on the internet over 17 years ago. Let's say 1996-98 to 2015 when it was taken down. So we went and had a look at this again. This is a longer version of it, more information. Could you go back to where we believe we left off? Okay. Aramaic Bible Translator Notes 2013-14. The translation that you would find at va.com, that we're presenting you, is made from the original ancient Aramaic Scriptures directly into English. It is translated from the manuscripts of the ancient Church of the East, hidden and preserved for over 2,000 years, which survived the persecutions by the Roman and Greek pagans of the early centuries of Christianity. It survived the persecution of the Roman Church. This is talking about the Apostolic Christianity, right? From the first century, from the disciples, first century AD and onwards. It survived the persecution of the Roman Church under Constantine and the early emperors of Rome in the 4th and 5th centuries. It survived the persecution of the Crusaders, who attacked the Holy Lands in subsequent centuries. Finally, this early church ended up in Persia and was protected by the Persian kings until the upheavals of the Islamic or Mohammedan conquest starting in the 7th century drove the ancient Church of the East into the mountain strongholds of Asia Minor, Ottoman Empire, the then Ottoman Empire, and later Turkey. The Church of the East survived and maintained the scriptures in the original language all through the conquest of the Mongolians, Genghis Khan, 12th century, and the Tatars, Tamerlane, 15th century. The Church of the East had spread the faith in Yeshua, or Jesus, all the way to China. From the 5th to the 8th century, the Church of the East survived the Islamic or Mohammedan conquest of the Fertile Crescent and the Holy Lands. While Europe was in the Dark Ages, the ancient Church of the East was also struggling against the forces of darkness. However, the Church continued to spread the teachings of Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, and the knowledge of the Scriptures throughout the ages. They even disciples like Thomas, etc., even went to India and created 7 to 9 churches there. The Church had miraculously survived to this day. It's survived to this day. The descendants of Ashur, A-S-H-U-R, some people try to say Ashur, A-S-H-E-R, which is the son or grandson of Jacob, who came later, right? The descendants of Ashur continue to read the scripture. These are the Ashuri. They continue to read the scriptures in their language. The language that Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, and Esau, Jesus spoke. The language of all the prophets of the scriptures who prophesied about Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah. So that would be the Aramaic. This Aramaic, yeah. They are all in parts of the world. They are in all parts of the world. They no longer have a country, but they maintain their language in various dialects. The ancient scriptures were maintained in the original language, the mother tongue that was spoken in Mesopotamia or Bet Narin, and the surrounding regions from the beginning of recorded history. The language started out as pictures or pictographs, pictographic writing, evolved into symbols, cuneiform, and finally became alphabetical in Nineveh at about 800 BC. Remember, supposedly Jonah had gone there in that decade. The Phoenicians used this language for trade. It spread and became the dominant language of the Holy Lands at the time of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah. The Roman Catholic Church was dominant in Europe throughout the Middle Ages. In the early 17th century, Christianity went through a Reformation. Martin Luther in Germany and William Tyndale in England broke away from the Catholic Church and translated the Bible into German and English. This opened the floodgates of knowledge to Europeans and subsequently to Americans. The US in turn broke away from Catholicism and established its own brand of Protestantism. And so you could say in Martin Luther's era they were Roman Catholic, but they protested, said to the Roman Catholic Church at the time, hey, there's a lot of things that are wrong here. They obviously wouldn't allow people to learn the Latin, the poorer common people, so they don't know what was really written there. They give them this other story, say purgatory or whatever, and then say, put some money into the coffers. We need the money, etc., so your people can move on. They're up there in purgatory, or this sort of stuff, right? So, yeah, they protested. They said, look, you need to reform. You need to reform. Things need to be changed and corrected. So they were called Protestants, right? Protestants, or Protestants. Not the Protestants you have today. That's a different sector of people that come out and broke away and formed their own little church, right? But they're still clinging to the mother church today through their garb or their outfits, right? Their sashes, their purple sashes, etc., plus their practices, their rites, etc. They're still affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church in that sense, or totally affiliated to her, loyal to her, etc., and they're loyal to the church, loyal to the Pope, etc. You could say they're breakaways, they're the branch-offs or the daughters of that particular church. So the church, the Apostolic Church of the East, miraculously survived to this day. The descendants of Asher continue to read the scriptures, the Asherite, in their language, the language that Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, and Esau, Jesus the Messiah, spoke. The language of the prophets, of all the prophets of the scriptures, who prophesied about Esau, Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah. They are all in parts of the world. They are in all parts of the world. They no longer have a country, but they maintain their language in various dialects. The ancient scriptures were maintained in the original language, the mother tongue that was spoken in Mesopotamia and the surrounding regions from the beginning of recorded history. The language started out as pictures or pictographic writing, evolved into symbols, cuneiform, and finally became alphabetical in Nineveh at about 800 BCE. The Phoenicians used this language for trade. It spread and became the dominant language of the Holy Lands at the time of Esau, Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah. The Roman Catholic Church was dominant in Europe throughout the Middle Ages. In the early 17th century, Christianity went through a Reformation. Martin Luther in Germany and William Tyndale in England broke away from the Catholic Church, but they were still part of the Roman Catholic Church, considered affiliates of that Roman Catholic Church. They weren't fully excommunicated and then punished for that. Again, they translated the Bible into German and English. This opened the floodgates of knowledge to Europeans and subsequently to Americans. The US in turn broke away from Catholicism and established its own brand of Protestantism. The early presidents sought independence from Catholic and European Protestant churches. They did not recognize Orthodox Christianity either. As for the Church of the East, which was not involved in the Reformation, the American churches ignored completely, and the authentic scriptures preserved in the ancient Aramaic language became totally foreign to American Christians. This is what Victor Alexander has struggled with for the last 16 to 20, 30 years, because the majority of his readers are the English-speaking, or were the English-speaking peoples of the world. They are used to the traditional English language terms such as Jesus Christ and Lord God. Therefore, he had to retain the terminology for them and posted it on another page. The difference. All religions are great when it comes to celebration, success and victory, but when it comes to sickness, failure and death, religions have nothing to offer except to express sorrow and consolation. When Esau, or Jesus, walked the earth, he fed the thousands with a few fish and a few loaves of bread. He healed the sick and raised the dead, but he had not come to demonstrate his ability to feed the masses or prevent them from dying. He had not come to lead his followers into battle against their enemies. He could have done all that from heaven. He did not need to set foot on earth to do that, right? Esau, or Jesus, came to the world to teach us how to deal with failure, sickness and death. We all do very well when successful, healthy and alive. When there are failures in life, no solutions, insurmountable problems and opposition, there is no greater example than that set by Esau, or Jesus, as he instructed his disciples to deal with each and every difficulty. When they were sick, he healed them. When dying, he raised them. But what happened after Lazarus was raised from the dead, after the woman was healed of hemorrhaging, after lepers and the lame were healed? They were going to die after some years, because everybody dies, right? You can't escape death. He may have extended their life on earth by some years, but they would not live forever on earth. Lazarus would have to die sometime. Everybody dies and everybody leaves this life. With Esau, or Jesus, failure does not get you down, sickness does not overwhelm you, and dying is not the most horrible thing that ever happened to you. It is all bearable. Esau, or Jesus, is literally there for you when you need him. If you've never experienced the miraculous power of Esau, or Jesus, you are really missing something. If you never heard a doctor say it is a miracle, you are no longer sick. We cannot find a disease. You do not know what it's like to be healed by Esau, or Jesus. When you can lift yourself up and go on with your life after a great failure, you know what it is like to be a follower of Esau, or Jesus. When you are dying and there is no one around who can help you, but you feel confident and your fear is manageable or completely absent, you know what it is to truly believe in Esau, or Jesus. When it comes time to die, you will understand what it was like for Esau, or Jesus, to give his life for your sake. He is the only one who can resurrect you if you put your life in his hands. This is why he came to the world, to prove that he is the manifestation of the creator of the universe. Okay? So he's the manifestation of the creator of the universe, and God is the embodiment of that manifestation. So if you looked at the Brita, you would see that he was the one given the authority to create everything from the planet forward. Okay? God the Father, from the planet backward, the galaxies, etc., etc. He created all of those. He came to the world to prove that he is the manifestation of the creator of the universe. He resurrected himself, and he can resurrect you. Once you understand that he is the only one who can resurrect you, then you will rest assured, and when the time comes, you will be able to die at peace, or die in peace. Once you follow Esau, or Jesus, and accept him, then you will be able to deal with failure, defeat, sickness and death at any time during your life. And you will not think in terms of worldly rewards, but you will come to understand the heavenly rewards, the kingdom that Esau, or Jesus, spoke of, the kingdom of heaven. Don't be fooled by the bribe, put it that way, that you're going to get this mansion, gold mansion, all this sort of stuff, and 72 virgins and all these free grapes and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, just be very careful with that sort of thing, that promotional type thing, right? Look to the scriptures to see what it actually says, okay, and means. The Greek logos. The word milta is translated as logos in the Greek original. What does logos mean in Greek? The term was used as far back as the 6th century BC. Aristotle wrote about it. Subsequent philosophers wrote about it. The Catholics, Jerome and Augustine, wrote about it and made it into the holy word describing Jesus in the Western tradition of Christianity. However, milta, or miltha, is the original word that the writers of the scriptures used to describe Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah. Milta is more than the word. It is more than a philosophical concept describing Jesus as the spokesman for God. Yeshua, or Jesus, is more than a spokesman in the Gospel of John. Yeshua, Jesus, is the manifestation of the Creator. Yeshua, Jesus, manifests the Father in every way. He is the physical manifestation of the Father whom we would have never known fully if Yeshua, Jesus, had not come to the world. However, we cannot bypass Yeshua or Jesus in order to have a direct connection with to the Father, God the Father. Our connection can only be through Yeshua or Jesus. This is what it means that He is the way, the truth, and the life. When you read Victor N. Alexander's translation of the Gospel of John, we present it to you, you get that clearly. He's added an audio commentary to his translation of the Gospel. He did that on his website, va.com. He decided to report the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, repost it at that time, right? And you'd find the links to it, etc., as he writes here, in this particular section of his website, Translation Project. And he was satisfied that presenting the Aramaic New Testament Scriptures with the original terms or idioms, etc., preserved intact from the time of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, and the Apostles, whom he sent forth to preach the Gospel, is the best he can do to spread the true Gospel. He would continue to post commentaries to clarify some of the most critical aspects of his translation project. And he talks about Paul, and the claim that Paul wrote his letters to the Greeks, and therefore all the New Testament was originated in Greek. This is the main justification of Western theology, etc., in claiming that the New Testament was originated in Greek, or originally all written in Greek. What this does is that all those followers of Yeshua the Messiah, or Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus, right, the Christ the Messiah, from the East are ignored and forgotten, and their faith is denied. Who are these followers of Yeshua, or Jesus? They are descendants of the Assyri in northern Mesopotamia, such as the Aturai, Assyrians. The descendants of the Babylonians in southern Mesopotamia, such as the Chaldeans and Sumerians. The balance, only thing is, you have to be careful here with this Sumerian, okay, because here, this is the Greek, right? When they add the ear, this end suffix or prefix on the end of it, they are saying these are the people who occupied that particular land at the time of their visit, right? So they called it Sumeria. Okay? It possibly was Shinar in the original language, or Sumer, but it wasn't the Greek rendition of it, right? Okay, why we're saying this is because these Sumerians, it said, were not Semitic. Okay, but these Shinar, the Shinar, those who gathered in the desert of Shinar and then decided to build that tower, were Semitic. So there's a great difference here, right? Possibly two different peoples. Okay, that were there. One Semitic, one not. Okay, the balance of the Aramaic speaking people in the Near East and the Holy Lands, the descendants of the small kingdoms that proliferated during the Greek and Roman empires. So these people, these original Shinar or Sumerians, were probably those related to Nimrud, okay, descendants of Nimrud, etc., etc. So they were Semitic. These other ones that they're referring to, these other peoples that possibly went there, weren't. Okay? And they were named the Sumer, or the Sumerians. So there's a great difference there. So continuing from there. The balance of the Aramaic speaking people in the Near East and the Holy Lands, the descendants of the small kingdoms that proliferated during the Greek and Roman empires, and the descendants of the African followers of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, such as the Ethiopians and the Copts. There are millions of Aramaic speaking peoples in Asia, from the Apostolic age in India, China and the Far East. There are Armenians, Maronites, Melkites, Byzantines, Syrians, and literally hundreds of other ethnicities that are all forgotten by the West when it comes to mentioning who are the followers of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah. Who are all these nations and the ethnicities that followed Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, from the beginning of the Apostolic age? They are the fruits of the labour of the 12 disciples of Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, and the rest of the apostles that went east to preach the gospel. Why does the West only talk about Peter and Paul? What about the other disciples? Here are the names of all the disciples: Shimon Keeper, Simon Peter, Andreas, Andrew his brother, Yaakov, James, Yohanan, John his brother, Philippus, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, or Matoma, Matthias, Matthew, Yaakov, Bar-Halper, James son of Alphaeus, Tadar, Jude, Shimon the Canaan, Simon the Zealot, and Matthias, who was chosen to replace Yehuda, or Judas Iscariot. What happened to them? Did they not go all over the world and preach the gospel of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah? Were they not Jews who spoke the ancient Aramaic names, or Galileans, under the Jewish religion, authorities, etc. at that particular time? In what language were the books of the New Testament and the Old Testament written? Did they preach in Greek? Possibly the one that really did was Paul, and being a Roman citizen and being able to access these different areas with the Greeks and all that sort of stuff. He, being educated, possibly could do that, etc., etc., right? Why deny the work of all those disciples and apostles of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah? Why deny Eastern Christianity for 1,000 years? Western Christianity didn't begin until the 2nd millennium, or 2nd century AD. Now, that is the 3rd millennium. Western Christianity is trying to ignore the Eastern followers. So, yeah, it basically at a later date, after the disciples, etc., right? If that's what it's saying.